Hi, and welcome to the screencast. This screencast will take the place of our block period on Wednesday, May the 7th. And the topic that we'll deal with today is the power of the church. And if you're organizing your notes according to chapter and section, this is chapter 13, section 4. And as we've seen over the past couple of weeks here, the power of the church has grown in Europe basically ever since the fall of the Roman Empire. So the power of the church has grown ever since the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and we've seen that in a couple of different occasions. Last week, we looked at how a few of the popes, Gregory the First especially, established the church as not only a religious power, but a political power as well. So the church had both religious and political power. I mean, if we take a look at this map right here, this is a map from Europe in 1000. This area right here, this that's marked by this kind of bright green color, is what's called as the Papal States. So this is a territory that the Pope controlled and ran just like a king. So he was in charge of this, and the people that lived in this territory obeyed the Pope not just in religious affairs, but in political and civil affairs as well. So the church has both religious and political power, and that's most notably in the Papal States. But also, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks here, anytime a big political event happened or a big political decision was made, the Pope was involved somehow or another, whether that was Charlemagne going to the Pope asking to be crowned Holy Roman Emperor, or whatever it might be. The Pope was heavily involved in political as well as religious affairs in the Middle Ages. So one of the things that happened here is that we have this Pope called Gregory the Seventh. He was the Pope from 1073 to 1085. And he launched something called the Gregorian Revolution. And basically what Gregory wanted to do was that he thought that, okay, the church is doing well, but it can do even better. We in the church have some problems that we need to get rid of in order for us to function even better and to gain even more power. So he set 3 goals for himself, and he wanted to kind of fix 3 things in the church in order to make the church even stronger. So his 3 goals. So his 3 goals were the first one was that he wanted the clergy to be more morally upstanding. So a moral regeneration of the clergy, which basically meant that there were some priests that did not necessarily behave in the way that the priests should behave. They often gambled, they sometimes drank, they sometimes had wives and mistresses, which they were not allowed to have. So he wanted the clergy to be more morally upstanding. So that was his number 1 goal. The second goal that he had is that he wanted to centralize the church even more. So he wanted the church to be even more centralized. And as you can, I'm sure you understand here, you know what centralization means by this point. So that means basically that the Pope has even more power. So if we centralize the church, the power of the Pope gets even stronger. So that was his second goal, and his last goal was to end what's something that's called lay investiture. And that's going to be our main topic today, and I'm going to go ahead and explain here what lay investiture is, because it's a little bit complicated, and it is the main problem that the church is facing at this point. So if we look at lay investiture here, what it is the practice of non-church officials, so lay people, that is non-church officials, selecting church officials. And this might sound really, really strange to you, so I'm going to go ahead and try to explain this for you. Basically, this is a function of feudalism. And just try to stay with me here as I go through this, because as we've seen when we went through feudalism in class this week, if you were a local landlord, so a local landlord, a local large landowner, we said the other day in class that he had full jurisdiction over the manor. So basically what that meant was that anything that happened in the manor, anything that took place in the manor, the local landlord had complete control over that. So if we look at this from a religious standpoint, this is where it gets a little bit complicated here. And I'm going to use kind of a local example that I've used with some of you that have worked on Gregory the Seventh for your project. You will recognize this. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that I am a local landlord here in Richmond. I own the property on which St. Stephen's Church is located. I own that property. I have nothing to do with the church, but I own that property, and the church is kind of runs its own business on my property. Under feudalism, if, let's say, the priest in St. Stephen dies, he's old, he dies, and they need a new priest, because of the fact that the local landlord had full jurisdiction of the manor, meaning all the property that he owns. That meant that I can select the new priest at St. Stephen's. So local landlords could select new priests and bishops, and of course you can see why this is a problem. Normally, this will be the task of the church, of course. So normally this would be the task of the church, naturally, because if a person in the church passes away, if a priest passes away, the church would just appoint a new priest. But now under feudalism, because the local landowners have so much power, they get to choose the new priests or bishops or whatever it might be. And because a lot of these landowners were not very invested in the church, they sometimes elected their friends to be the new priests, or just they sometimes sold this new office to the highest bidder. So we have all these people that should not be named priests becoming priests in the church. So many people becoming priests who should not have been named to this office. It might be a friend of the landowners or whoever it might be. So the church becomes increasingly corrupted, and this goes back to the moral regeneration of the clergy here. We had a lot of people that really weren't all that interested in the church becoming priests and bishops, and they behaved in ways that were not very fitting of the church. So you can see why this is a problem for the church. So what Pope Gregory did is in 1075, the Pope held a council in Rome. So he held a council in Rome where he met with all the leading church officials and all the leading church people, and he basically made one important decision at this council. That is that lay investiture, this practice of non-church officials electing church officials, should be banned. So he banned lay investiture. And furthermore, he said that anyone who's associated with the lay investiture, if you practice it, if I'm a landowner, and again, I appoint somebody to take the job as priest in St. Stephen, I will be excommunicated from the church. I will be thrown out of the church. So anyone supporting lay investiture would be excommunicated, so that is thrown out of the church. So this will lead to a huge conflict, as we'll see, between the church and everyone who's not involved with the church, and we'll look at that in class on Friday. Again, this is I recognize that this is a relatively complicated matter, and I hope that this made sense to you. If not, do let me know, and we'll go over it in more detail in class on Friday.